Are you one of the photographers that's making this tragic, unrecoverable, image-destroying mistake? In this video, we'll be talking about one of the biggest mistakes that photographers make when shooting in the light and airy photography style that's so popular. It's something that might have your clients regretting that they chose you, or even potential clients skipping over you without you even knowing. But the great thing is there's an easy solution for this, and in this video, we're gonna be breaking it down. Be sure to stick to the end of this video as well, where I'm gonna be sharing an editing tip on the biggest gotcha to avoid when it comes to this photography style to help keep your images clean, crisp, and pro. When done right, the light and airy photography style is one of the most well-respected and sought-after photography styles, not just by photographers, but by magazine and blog editors, by vendors, and high-paying clients. And for good reason. It's modern while also being timeless. It prints beautifully, and it gives our clients beautiful, flawless skin tones without having to do a lot of retouching in post. It's no wonder it's so loved and is one of the most popular styles in portraits, fashion, and wedding photography. However, there's one tragic mistake that new and even seasoned photographers make when trying to emulate this style of photography, and that's blowing out and completely obliterating the highlight detail in your images. I call this mistake tragic because once that detail is gone, it's gone. There's no recovering it. Even if you shoot in RAW, there's no bringing back those highlights. And this is the detail in your bride's dream dress, that beautiful intricate beadwork or lace detailing, all the little elements that made her fall in love with it and say, yes, that's the dress for me. It's the detail in your couple's venue, that beautiful sunset or ocean view that they paid so much for and they can't wait to have for their most beautiful moment. It's the soft, beautiful detail in her flowers. And yes, it's even the detail of grandma's hair during the portraits. I can't make this stuff up. This is stuff that's been shared with me from other vendors and publishers that I've talked to that knew that their clients were disappointed when their photographer blew out parts of their images. And once that detail's gone, it's gone. You're never getting it back. If you've made this mistake in the past, you're definitely not alone and you're not entirely at fault. In blog posts, tutorials, and even courses, well-meaning teachers and other photographers are spreading the myth that if you shoot in this photography style, then you just have to be okay with giving up those highlight details. If you're exposing for the skin tones, after all, naturally other parts of the image are going to blow out. So a lot of photographers have just given up and made their peace with it and resorted to saying, well, that's just the look. Some even defended by saying, I intentionally blow things out. But between you and me, we know that nobody intentionally wants to destroy detail in their images. Think of it for a moment from your bride's perspective. The pictures of her wedding day are what's going to allow her to remember each and every little detail. You don't want her to look back at her dress and not be able to see all that beautiful detail. I mean, if she wanted just a white sheet, she would have bought just a plain white sheet. And from a business relations perspective, the invitation designer is going to want to see her beautifully designed layout on the invitations versus just a blown out blob of text. And the florist who has put together these beautiful arrangements isn't gonna want just a white blob of flowers. And the wedding planner and the designer who spent so much time and energy into the entire design of the day is gonna really care about seeing all of that beautiful detail. These are the things that higher end vendors look for when they're hoping to refer. And they're also things that brides look for. So what if I told you that there's another way? There's a way of achieving that light and airy look that you crave, but in a way that's more filmic and still retains all that beautiful highlight detail. And here's the kicker, it doesn't add significantly to your workflow. In fact, it actually might save you time. And it's actually super simple, just a little counterintuitive. For a light and airy style, sometimes you want to shoot dark. If you've seen some of my other videos all on how to shoot for this light and airy style and also some of my editing tutorials in Lightroom, you might have noticed that I'll commonly underexpose my images on purpose. And this might at first seem counterintuitive, so I've gotten a lot of questions both in the comments here on YouTube and DMs on Instagram from you guys asking about this style. And in talking to my students, I've noticed that there's two commonly held myths that come up around this. The first myth is that you should overexpose for the best skin tones. This comes from a misunderstanding of how exposure works, specifically when it comes to digital photography. This technique of overexposing for skin tone was actually born from film photographers sharing their technique. And because the light and airy photography style is largely inspired from the beauty of film and trying to emulate that look, digital photographers have taken the processes that film photographers have done and tried to translate it to a digital format. The problem with this is film and digital photography are completely different mediums and also handle information differently. I originally come from a film photography background, so I understand how the two differ, and a major difference lies in how you want to expose for the different mediums. To boil it down to the most basic, if you're shooting film, you want to expose for the shadows. This is because film holds detail in the highlights and the shadows are difficult to recover. If you underexpose at all and then try to brighten up in post after the fact, the shadows will become muddy and kind of yucky looking. Digital, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. If you're shooting digital, you want to expose for the highlights, which means in some scenarios you might want to underexpose slightly. This is because digital holds more detail in the shadows and the highlights are what's hard to recover if they're overblown. This leads me to the second myth. For the best skin tones, highlights need to be sacrificed. In other words, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And this simply isn't true. I eat all the cake. It just requires changing things up a little and letting go of the idea of having it be perfect in camera, and instead shooting with the final edit in mind. With digital, I find it's always better to err on the side of underexposing a bit versus overexposing, because you can actually lift quite a bit. A lot of detail lives in those shadow regions, versus if you blow out your highlights, even with shooting raw, it will be very hard to bring them back. And it will also get a bit of a crispier look since there is less dynamic range in that area. Next, I have a quick editing tip on how to edit intentionally underexposed images in order to bring back those shadow details while still keeping all that beautiful highlight detail that you've retained in camera. But first, if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to click that little button below. It's one of the best ways you can support my channel, and I'm constantly sharing new videos with photography tutorials, editing tutorials, and tips to help you grow your photography business. One of the most common editing mistakes that I see with the light and airy look is after a photographer has underexposed in order to retain some of the highlight detail, whether that be in a backlight situation where you're trying to retain some of the detail in the sky or the background detail, or if you have a light colored dress, flowers, and you're trying to retain some of that detail, you expose right in camera by underexposing to retain those highlight details. But then when you're coming into Lightroom, a lot of times people will just want to dial up the exposure in the exposure slider to get that bright and airy look. But what this does is it's essentially reversing all that work that we did in camera to retain the highlight details. And we're now, with this image here, as you can see, we're losing detail up in the sky. So this is now blowing out the detail that we retained. So instead, we'll go ahead and reset that. And there's actually two different ways that I balance my exposure in Lightroom during the editing phase in order to still get that bright and airy look without sacrificing highlights. And the first way is to brighten up in the midtones. So I'm usually doing this by lifting in the shadows. I still will lift exposure, but while doing so, I'm always keeping an eye on the highlights of the image to kind of balance things out. And then I'll also usually come down into the tonal curve, and I have an import preset, link for you guys below if you would like to download it for yourself and play with it. It's available for free. But with my import preset, it lifts primarily in the midtones and it brings down just the whites just a tad, which gives a much more filmic look. And if I pop over to my final image, here's the final fully edited image, you'll also see there's one more technique I use, and that's in the hue, saturation, luminance panel. And this is where I lift the luminance of the oranges just a bit. And this targets primarily the skin tones while leaving the rest of the tones of the image alone. If I turn this off and back on, you can see the impact that that has on the image. So if we go to our before and our after, you can see all the details retained, but we get a nice, beautiful, bright and airy look. So I just wanted to share this quick tip with a couple techniques that I use to achieve this look. Check out some of my other editing tutorials to see how I do a full edit from beginning to very end. And also I highly recommend checking out my video on HSL to dive really deep into the HSL sliders and how you can use this tool in a way to mix up some really cool looks. Hope this video helps inspire you to shoot a little bit darker with your digital images. Be more afraid of overexposing than underexposing. This simple shift will have a major impact on your images. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one on how to improve your craft and build a wildly profitable photography business. And I will see you in the next video.